I'm Drew, a lawyer in British Columbia who helps people understand the law. As of November 28, 2016, there's a new law in BC that affects nonprofit societies across the province. This law, the Societies Act, has implications for the bylaws of nonprofit societies. A society's bylaws set out the rules for governing and operating the society, such as the conduct of meetings and the role of directors. Another video in this series covers the steps involved in conducting a review of your society's bylaws for compliance with the new Societies Act. My goal in this video is to help you build some momentum for your bylaw review by featuring some key clauses to consider in your review. This isn't intended to be an exhaustive list, just a way to get you going on the important task of reviewing your society's bylaws. First, a bit about model bylaws. In this video, I zero in on 7 clauses where the bylaws of many societies are problematic, or where the law has changed to open up a potential opportunity to adapt your bylaws to better fit the current needs of your society. Many of these clauses are in one or both sets of model bylaws that are important pieces of the mix. Under the new Societies Act, there are new model bylaws found in Schedule 1 of the new Societies Regulation. These model bylaws contain basic clauses that align with the new Act. There were also model bylaws under the old Society Act. Those model bylaws were called Schedule B bylaws because they appeared in Schedule B of the old Act. Many societies in BC adopted these old model bylaws when they were formed. So as I go through the 7 key clauses to consider, I'll periodically comment on the old Schedule B bylaws. Okay, let's get started. Number 1, the timing of the AGM. Under the new Societies Act, an annual general meeting must be held in each calendar year. There had been a requirement under the old Society Act that an AGM must be held within 15 months of the last AGM. That requirement has been removed. Unfortunately, the old Schedule B model bylaws also included the requirement that the AGM be held within 15 months of the last AGM. So if you're using the old Schedule B model bylaws, consider removing that requirement in order to enable your society to take advantage of the greater flexibility allowed in the new Act in timing your AGMs. Number 2, notice of the AGM. Under the new Act, notice of an AGM must be sent to every member of the society at least 14 days before the meeting. There are 2 ways the new Act gives you more flexibility with notice. First, your bylaws may provide a shorter notice period of as few as 7 days. Given that often nonprofits find it difficult to meet the 14-day notice period, you may want to consider adopting a bylaw enabling a shorter notice period. Second, for societies with more than 250 members, your bylaws may permit a new alternate notice mechanism for the AGM, featuring emailing members and publishing the notice on the society website. For larger societies, adopting such a bylaw could save a lot of time and effort in planning your AGM. Number 3, quorum at member meetings. The new Act provides that the quorum at a members' meeting is 3 voting members, or a greater number if the bylaws provide. Your bylaws may provide for a greater number by specifying the number of voting members or that the number be calculated as a percentage or on another basis. The old Schedule B model bylaws provided for a quorum of 3 members present or a greater number that the members may determine at a general meeting. If you have the Schedule B provision and it's been working for you, you might decide to keep it. But consider that there is some ambiguity in the way the provision is worded as compared to the new Act. There's some question as to whether the mechanism of members determining a greater quorum at a general meeting is permitted by the language of the new Act that talks about specifying a number or a calculation. As an alternative, you may want to go with an approach such as that in the new model bylaws, which provides for a quorum of 3 voting members or 10% of voting members, whichever is greater. If you're considering such an approach, consider whether 3 voting members is the right number for your society and what percentage might be a good fit for your society. For example, for societies with larger memberships, 3 might be too few members to set for a quorum, whereas 10% of voting members might be hard to achieve. A higher fixed number and a lower percentage, say in the range of 10 voting members or 5% of voting members, whichever is greater, might be a better fit for a larger society. Number 4, voting threshold for a special resolution. Under the new Act, the voting threshold to pass a special resolution is 2/3 of votes cast at a member's meeting. Under the old Act, the voting threshold was 3/4 of votes cast. Your bylaws may set a higher threshold than 2/3, either generally or for specific resolutions. The voting threshold must be spelled out as unanimous, a fraction or percentage of votes cast, or as a formula. One result of the way the Act is worded, if your bylaws currently set a voting threshold of 3/4, that threshold prevails, unless you alter the bylaw. The exception is for a vote to remove a director from office. The new default threshold of 2/3 applies regardless of what the bylaws say. For societies that have previously unalterable provisions in their constitution that are being moved to the bylaws on transitioning the society under the new Act, one option to consider after transition is to set a higher voting threshold on just those previously unalterable provisions. Number 5, number of directors. Under the new Act, a society must have at least 3 directors, unless it is a member-funded society, which can have as few as 1 director. There is no maximum number of directors specified in the Act. Your bylaws may set a minimum and maximum number of directors, though you can't go below 3 directors. The old Schedule B model bylaws set the minimum number of directors at 5 directors. The new model bylaws set the minimum number of directors at 3 and the maximum at 11. In considering your options, note that the provision in the new model bylaw setting a maximum of 11 directors is just a suggestion. Number 6, removal of directors. Under the new Societies Act, a director may be removed by a special resolution of the members or by any method provided in the bylaws. Under the old Act, a director could only be removed by a special resolution of members. This is a meaningful change that can help societies move forward when faced with a director who is not performing. If your bylaws don't currently have a mechanism for removing a director, consider adding a provision allowing the directors to remove a director. Number 7, borrowing of funds. Under the new Act, a society may borrow funds at the discretion of the directors. Under the old Act, if a society wanted to issue a debenture on borrowing funds, it required a special resolution of members. Under the new Act, your bylaws may limit the director's ability to borrow funds. For those using the old Schedule B model bylaws, those bylaws have a provision requiring a special resolution of members to issue a debenture, which is permitted under the new Act, but effectively curtails the increased flexibility provided to directors under the new Act. Consider whether you wish to remove that clause from your bylaws and give directors the ability to issue a debenture without going to the members. That completes our list of 7 bylaws that could kick off your society's bylaw review. Hopefully this helps get you started on this important task. It's a key step in transitioning your society to be fully compliant with the new Societies Act.